And now we go on. We will change the moderation to Dominik.
Thank you, Sebastian. Hello, so good afternoon, everybody. I hope you are still awake because we expect two very interesting and inspiring presentations. First, the first presentation is going to be held by Julia Moser, presenting us her patient's view on Usher syndrome. Magst du das haben, oder? Ja.
So, hi, hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks very much for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here and to meet so many of you. When I was 4 years old, I got my first diagnosis, and at the same time, I got my first label. Doctors told my parents that I had a severe hearing impairment. I had not really developed any language by then, and they also told them that, and that was the label, I would not develop any language, it was too late, and I would not go to school, so life options didn't seem all that bright. Yeah? And at the age of 13, I got my second diagnosis, and again, I also got a label with this. That was the time when I learned that I had Usher syndrome, and the doctor who told me this also told me at the same time that I would go blind, I would not really have a career option, I would not have many options, family, kids. If I did decide to have kids, they would probably have Usher syndrome too. So these two experiences really did have a huge impact on my life. It really impacted on how I viewed myself as a person. My identity was questioned. And I think there were two things that really came with it. One was to try even harder, because I did not want this to come true. And the second was what I learned, I had to hide. I had to hide that I have Usher syndrome, because only then would I be entitled to a happy life and to the life that I wanted to lead. I was lucky because my parents did not believe those doctors when I was 4 years old. I got my first set of hearing aids, I got speech therapy, and when I was 6 years old, I went to primary school, local primary school, small village in the countryside. I was the only kid with a disability. It worked fine. I think this was also down to the fact that I loved books and I loved reading, and this just really compensated for a lot. When I didn't understand what was spoken around me, I could always rely on books. I then later moved on to grammar school. Again, reading was really, really important to me, so I was actually able to get the education that I wanted. I loved going to school. And then when around the time I was 12 years old, puberty kicked in, I started feeling very, very self-conscious about my hearing aids. I hated them. Only grandmothers have them, but not 12-year-old girls. Yeah? I wanted to be normal. I wanted to be like everyone else. And soon after that, it turned out that I was also short-sighted, and I got my first set of glasses, and I loved them, because glasses, that was something my friends had as well. And I also thought it diverged from the fact that I have hearing aids. And then about a year later, when I was 13, my mother had noticed I tripped over a lot, and at night I didn't really see that well. She took me to the eye doctor, I was referred to hospital, tests were taken, and they told me that I had RP. And then they referred me to a geneticist. And that's when I first heard the word Usher syndrome. The geneticist told me, he did like really nice drawings, lines, and little defect gene, not defect gene, and how it all worked, and explained to me why I had Usher syndrome and why no one else in my family had it. That was the time before genetic testing. But he didn't only diagnose me with Usher syndrome, he also labeled me, because he then said, you will go blind, you should really choose a job that's suitable. I asked him what job that could be. I was 13. He didn't have an answer. And instead, he told me that my kids will have Usher syndrome too. And he had not got the facts wrong, because he had told me about the inheritance pattern. But what he meant was that if I did find a partner, he would certainly have Usher syndrome, because I would meet him in a patient organization. I did not join a patient organization for a very, very long time. Well, I went back home, I was shocked, and I'm sure my family was shocked too. We did not discuss this issue very much. It was there, but it was also a bit of a taboo. It was not something you like talking about. I did not have much information. This was the time before the internet. We had one book at home, a thick book, Family Health, lots of diseases, and there was one tiny paragraph on RP, and I kept reading it, looking for clues about what my life would look like in 10 years, 20 years. I did not have any more information. I did not have any contacts to anyone. I didn't want them. Yeah? And then I thought, okay, this disease progresses very slowly. Surely there will be a therapy option by the time. I relied on that. And then I started doubting it. Yeah, what if there was no therapy option in time? What would I do? I do not want to go blind. This was not something I could imagine. So I needed an exit strategy. And what I decided to do then was, I was 14, 15 maybe, surely it would be better not to live at all than to live with Usher syndrome. This sounds horrible, I know, but this really helped me, because I did not have to deal with what might happen one day. It really enabled me to focus on the present, on the life that I had now. So it did help. So clearly I lived in denial, and I lived in denial for a very, very long time. And when I thought about my experience with Usher syndrome and about my life with Usher syndrome, I recognized a model that describes the stages of grief people go through when they lose a loved person. And my eyes were, to me, like a very dear friend, my most important friend, because my eyes compensated for what I didn't understand. And so it really did feel like I had a friend who was very sick and who would die. And the 5 stages that were described are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. So I did live in denial for a very, very long time. I don't think I ever had a clear stage of anger. I don't remember that. What I did certainly have was the stage of bargaining. I started thinking about whether I could trade in my disease against something else. And I grew up in the Austrian Alps. I did not like climbing, as opposed to my parents, who did that a lot. I hated it. But there was this very distinct mountain that I saw every day, and I thought, well, maybe if I climbed this mountain every day, it's an exhausting day trip, 9 hours, yeah? If I climbed it every day and I didn't have Usher syndrome, that might be an idea. And then I thought, every day, no, maybe once a week. But I never tried. Because I came to the conclusion that maybe a life doing something that I don't like at all, and not having Usher syndrome, might actually be worse than having a life with Usher syndrome, and doing things I like. But the problem I had then was, how can you still do the things you like when you go blind? I didn't have any role models. I did not know that it was okay to be visually impaired. I didn't know that it was possible to live with an impairment, with a disability. So I went back to denial. I completed grammar school and I then went abroad. I worked a lot because I always felt rushed. I felt like I had to complete my tasks as quickly as possible before it was too late. I completed a university degree and then I came back to Austria and I considered my options again. I was okay. And I decided to go for legal studies because I thought legal studies could be compatible with Usher syndrome. And I think, looking back, this was one first step of acceptance because I was looking for alternatives. I was thinking about, okay, what can I do to provide for the fact that my vision gets really bad? But what I still didn't do was get open about Usher syndrome. I didn't talk about it. I still denied it most of the time. I thought, okay, let's live in the present. Who knows what will be in 10 years' time, whenever. I then started my career at a lawyer's office, and I also started a family soon after that. Yeah. I was not in any patient organization, which wasn't too difficult in Austria because there was no patient organization on Usher syndrome. My kids are now 10 and 7 years old. And I think having kids was actually really important to me because kids accept people as they are and they ask questions. And I was forced to give answers. And this really did quite a lot. But what also happened around that time was that my vision deteriorated very quickly in quite a short time frame. And I realized that there are a lot of things that I couldn't do any longer as I used to do. And my answer was to withdraw, to stay at home at night, not go out, find excuses. I didn't tell people why I chose to not participate. I also quit my career at the lawyer's office because there were some instances that made me realize that it's really difficult. I did not talk to my bosses about my disease. They knew about my hearing impairment, that was okay, but they did not know about my visual impairment. I'm quite sure if I had told them, it would not have been a problem. I think we would have found a solution, but I just wasn't prepared to come out. Yeah, that. I had young children anyway who needed all my attention. So there was a couple of years where I wasn't really that active. I think you could call this my years of depression. But I'm also very lucky because I didn't develop like a full-blown depression, but it was a time of a bit of loneliness, withdrawal, not knowing how to proceed. And then I decided to get lots of information. It was a lot easier now than it was many, many years ago. There was the internet. I decided to connect to others with Usher syndrome, and I met awesome people, and I met them, and there was this recognition from the beginning. There was this understanding, a level of understanding I hadn't known before because I hadn't known anyone with Usher syndrome before. And this was the best step I could take. Yeah. What I did as well was to start asking for help. This was something that was very difficult to me. I started a mobility training. At that time, I didn't get funding for it, so I only did a very basic training. But it did help me. I started going out more again. I couldn't read books any longer. That was something, you know the saying, if you have Usher syndrome or RP, you cannot find the bus stop, but you can read the timetable. Well, I don't find the bus stop, but I can't read the timetable either. So I can't read books any longer, which is a loss to me. But I turned to electronic books. I got software for my computer, so I can still read what's on the screen. I can find items on the screen. I got good lighting. I got assistive technology. I got a smartphone, which really is extremely helpful because it has a torch, it has voice-over, it has navigation, and I can read my ebooks on that. I get all my information from my smartphone. And I think smartphones are actually key when considering assistive technology for the future. And what we did as well, there was this dedicated team of people, of individuals affected by Usher syndrome, family members affected by Usher syndrome. And we got together, and it was our vision to found a patient organization in Austria, and that's what we did. And I think that was a very important step. I'm very happy about this. And those were all factors that contributed to me accepting myself as a person with Usher syndrome, accepting my identity, not hiding any longer. Hiding just makes matters worse, because as long as I hide, I can't get the help I need. And you just really need to get open about it, come out, and then this really is the precondition for asking for help and support just really is so important to all of us, so we can lead the lives that we want to lead. I'm also extremely happy that I was able to travel with a deaf-blind assistant to come here. It's the first time I've done this, and it's amazing. It just empowers so much. I find the people I want to talk to because I've got eyes with me. I've got ears with me who tell me what someone said if I didn't understand it. I always considered myself quite independent anyway, but it does really make a very big change. So I think we all have our unique stories. My story is just one story, and I think some of you might recognize some of the stages, some things will be completely different. I do think that patterns of coping with a disease like Usher syndrome are similar, but of course also very individual. And I think what's important is to find a way of enabling people with Usher syndrome to live the life they want to live, so they feel confident that they're entitled to the life they want to live. I think that's also important, because when I think back to the times when I was diagnosed, I was denied the right to a happy life, really. I was degraded. My life was, it appeared worthless to me. And I think this shouldn't happen. Of course, it's a shock, and denial will always be part of the process, and it is a difficult process. But I think what it really needs is that we have professionals from different disciplines who get together in a network to support individuals. So individuals can turn to them when they need to, at the time they need to, at their own pace. And that's how we can support individuals to cope with their disease and to find a good way to live. And also, when I look back at my life, I think what really helped me was I had a supportive network from the start, which was very important. I chose to get information about Usher syndrome. I chose to connect to others with Usher syndrome. I chose to get help. And I chose to work actively in a patient organization. And keeping this in mind when considering how to provide support for individuals, I think we really know it needs a multi-professional and multidisciplinary approach. And that's why I do the work that I do, because I feel privileged. I feel lucky. I had a lot of chances in my life that got me to where I am now. And I think everyone deserves this, and that's why I do the work. And I'm extremely happy if we get together to do this. So the vision that everyone who has Usher syndrome can lead an independent life can become reality for everyone. Thank you.
So thank you, Julia, for your very interesting, personal, and also very touching insights you have given us on your story and in your personal view of Usher syndrome. So we have 2 minutes, so maybe somebody wants to ask a question now. Otherwise, we would just proceed to the coffee break, and if you want to get in touch with Julia directly during the coffee break, just connect with her. So we are going to have the coffee break till 4:30. We come back at 4:30. We start at 4:30, so I ask you to come back at 4:25, at 25 minutes past 4. Thank you. Is that correct? Yeah. Das ist eine lange Pause. It's a long coffee break, but we need to connect and to talk.